when I thought I couldn't find my way out. Yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. Can mine, because can mine. How can mine your energy? That's right. How can mine say? Only you can make the change. How can mine shine your energy? How can mine shine so bright from darkness to light. Hey, 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 hey. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it won't seem way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Well, welcome to Alchemizing Energy. I'm your host, DJ Genesis. And today we have Awo Falokun. Today we're going to be talking about some aspects of IFA. I think we were going to talk about the Odu, and then we're also going to get into altars. Altars play a big part in IFA, as well as they play a big part in just religion altogether. And I wanted to talk about the significance of the altars in IFA, and any superstitions around them. A lot of times, when a loved one passes away, we create an altar. We put our male and female. That's like the first thing I learned to do when I got into IFA, is to have an ancestor altar for my loved ones. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that. The biggest question I had is that, do you get punished if, say, you stop taking care of your altar? Is there some kind of a negative things that happen? Because I
mean to laugh, but
yeah, let's go into it.
Here's what I'd like to do: is I'd like to have a theological conversation around the issue of spirit punishment. I think understanding that is really at the core of our faith. If you don't mind, we can get into all aspects of that question if you like. Let me build up to it maybe a little bit. Where I was blessed to study, where I was blessed to be initiated, where I traveled to on 6 occasions, where I really learned the practice that I have implemented in my own family. It was a rural farming area. There's not a lot of money there. It's I don't want to say people are poor, because that reflects a certain attitude, but people really relied on a barter system. It's not what I would call an urban environment. 40 years ago when I went, I used to joke that there was 20 naira, that's the Yoruba money in town, and people took turns holding it, because money was not a big factor in the daily life that was to really function and got done. And the every ritual I did in Ode Ramo involved 4 things, only 4 things. All right. It involved mud, blood, rocks, and leaves. That was it. We didn't have botanicas. There was not fancy cloth, not even pots, Most of the people that I worked with and learned from lived in mud homes that they constructed themselves. And each of those homes had an extra room for the Orisha. And the Orisha shrine was a rock on the dirt floor. That's pretty basic. You understand? So fancy stuff is fine. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying I saw people in Africa literally change physical reality by using rocks, leaves, mud, and blood, and by working with stones placed on a dirt floor. So anybody that advocates for the need for fancy stuff or expensive stuff or all that, sorry, don't buy it, not impressed. I don't think it's true. But here's something that's more fundamental that I want to stress. The faith as it was taught to me by my elder, Araba Adesanya Awoyade, and also based on my read of the verses of our sacred scripture, we don't proselytize. You know, if you like it, I love it. I can't, no one, and I believe this to be a universal human right, no one can tell you how to pray to God. That's between you and God. And that's such a fundamental human right that it's even guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. Hello, the right to freedom of religion. You know, and if you look at the taboos associated with good character, and if you understand that IFA is about the development of character, the very first rule is make no judgment. So there's nothing that you can do that I'm going to criticize. But I will do, we can have a conversation that I can say, well, I would do it a little differently. I've tried this and that, and this has been effective for me. I really believe that coming together to do this and that will produce this result, which is a good thing. But that's never in the context of judgment, never in the context of insisting that you do it my way, never in the context of doing it wrong. Ifa, the verse Obara Meji says that judging others and criticizing their efforts at spirituality is the source of evil in the world. Think about that. That's not good. So we want to get away from that notion of critique and criticism, I believe. And so, but you know, there's a history of how that developed, which I want to go into a little bit. So the point is, okay, so we build shrines for the purpose of really, I would say, grounding our faith. There's a thing in psychometry, a thing in spiritual science that says if I touch something, it leaves my imprint on that thing. So if I wash a stone and touch it, it becomes linked to me. So in essence, the stones in our pots is like the memory bank for our computers. Every time we go into our shrine and pray, that prayer becomes imprinted on the sacred icons we put in our altar. I'm not saying you can only use stones. I'm saying stones are the foundation of an altar. You can add as much of stuff as you want. You know, some people like lots of colored cloth. Some people like lots of bells, literally bells and drums and shakeres and rattles and all that stuff. That's all. If that helps you, use it. There's nothing in any of the verses of Odu that I've seen that says don't use it, or that it's wrong, or that it's bad, you know. So when we look at the issue of the purpose for the purpose of the shrine is to strengthen our connection with our higher self, which then becomes the platform for our connection with spirit. Now, IFA's spiritual discipline that I practice, that I was taught as part of our lineage, we get up every morning, we do a daily prayer, we do divination to see the lesson for the day. We try and internalize that lesson. At the end of the day, we look back and see if we actually got the lesson, if we learned the lesson, if we expanded our consciousness. Pretty simple, pretty direct, pretty straightforward, not complicated. Every 4 days, we meet with the family and do a similar divination process to see how the family can come together, stay together, and be together. Every 16 days, we meet with the members of our Egbe, meaning we meet with people in the community who worship the same Orisha or who worship Ifa as we do. And every 91 days, which is the beginning of the new season, we meet with the entire community and do divination on how to bring in the new season. And then every New Year, which is June 23rd in traditional Yoruba calendar, we certainly symbolically and spiritually pray with the entire Ifa community worldwide, and we get an Odu that guides how we relate to the community for the up and coming year. So that's the fundamental aspect and elements of our faith. So if you ignore your shrine, if you don't do the prayers, if you don't do divination, if you don't seek guidance, there's no punishment. You just don't develop. I guess in some ways you could call that a punishment. I'm not sure. I wouldn't call it a punishment. It's just, it's the old joke of the person that was in a shipwreck and they were stranded on an island and they prayed to God to be rescued, and the helicopter came and the guy said, "No, God's going to rescue me." A boat came and, "No, God's going to rescue me." And the person that was stranded, "No, God's going to rescue me." And then they die and go to heaven. And the guy says, "Why didn't you rescue me?" And God says, "I sent you a plane, a boat, and a helicopter." So, there's an element of, in our faith, practical level of God helps those that help themselves. I mean, that's part of the faith. That's part of the discipline. And to expect automatic help based on route actions and routine actions and simply going through the motions is not an understanding of our faith. Now, there's a little bit of history I want to share that most people are not aware of that's extremely controversial. Doesn't mean it's not true. But when the tradition went to Cuba during the period of enforced servitude, much of the Africans that were forcibly brought to Cuba were located in central Cuba on a huge sugar plantation, the largest sugar plantation in Western world, in a city called Matanza. And in that part of Cuba, there was a strong retention of IFA and IFA initiation, IFA divination, IFA spiritual practice. There was also a rich interaction from other places in West Africa, particularly the Congo and what's become known as Palo and a number of other things. And they're all clearly represented there. And they developed really within the Afro-Cuban culture and Afro-Cuban community. And I would say, there's different takes on this and different historical perspectives, but there was a certain amount of leniency and a certain amount of freedom, I would say. That might not be the right word, but a certain amount of ability for Afro-Cubans in Matanza to practice their traditional rites and their traditional initiations. Not complete freedom, and certainly the Catholic Church had a huge influence. But there was a significant thing that happened, and that is that in 1946, Batista, who was the dictator of Cuba at the time, supported the fascist dictator in Spain, whose name I've forgotten. But it created a huge backlash among Spanish Cubans at the time. I would say the more liberal Spanish Cubans were really offended by Batista's support of fascism and Hitler. And so what developed was what's called historically the Cuban Renaissance. And so there was a real affirmation of everything Cuban. And in 1946, 3 Cuban college students went to Matanza and wanted to receive initiation into IFA as part of the elevation of everything Cuban that was going on during that period of Renaissance. Now, there's a real subtle tragedy in this story that can be easily misunderstood. And I don't want anybody to hear what I'm about to say is homophobic, because that's not my intention. But Matanza was also one of the places that the Catholic Church sent their pedophile priests. And it was pretty, the hostility towards the Catholic Church was pretty intense in that part of the world during slavery, after slavery, and I would say even up until today. And the 3 college students who wanted to be initiated were rejected based on their sexual preference. So those 3 college students, they did 2 things. They went to Brazil to study Orisha, and then they also got a hold of a book called Faith of Our Fathers by Maurice Maupois, which was IFA as it was practiced in Benin, and used that as the basis for creating a religion that was subsequently known as Santeria. Now, there are people who say, and people have the right to define themselves, that Santeria is very old, very ancient, very African-based, and that's just simply not supported by the historical record. But the point I'm leading to, which you can read and check yourself, there was a man named Fernando Ortiz, who was a Cuban sociologist in the 1940s, who interviewed the 3 college students who were rejected by IFA and Matanza. And he had a very specific observation that he asked him about. What those 3 college students did is they wrote a whole entire corpus of Odu Ifa, which they use for their divination, which is extremely different than the corpus of Ifa used in Africa. It's extremely different. And so people are who don't realize when that difference occurred, why that difference occurred, how that difference changed really the fundamental principles of Ifa in the Caribbean area. It's extremely confusing. And I get it. But Ortiz made the point that he said, I look at African Odu and I look at the Odu that was generated from Havana. The college students were from Havana, and Santeria was a uniquely Havana practice that developed in the 40s. And he said the scripture of Santeria is really negative. I don't understand it. It doesn't seem very spiritual. And the people who he interviewed said, yeah, we did that on purpose because we felt if we didn't scare people, they wouldn't pay us. Now, I'm sorry, that's not a metaphysical principle that I support, that I aspire to, or, and here's the important point, that I attribute to Africa per se. So if you look at Odu as it was written and preserved and recited and studied in Africa, I've been doing that for 40 years. I have not seen one single reference to spirit being mad at anybody for anything. Not one. That is not a part of our faith. Worrying about this Orisha being mad at us, that's a uniquely Santeria invention. I believe in freedom of religion. You can believe whatever you want. You can embrace whatever you want. You can preach whatever you want, but it's not what I do. So if you ignore your shrine, Orisha's not going to be mad at you. I mean, the spirit of fire, why would the spirit of fire care what you do? The spirit of fire is going to be the spirit of fire no matter what. And you can use fire for what? You can use fire to warm your hands. You can use fire to read a book. You can use fire to cook your lunch, right? But if you sit in the fire and burn your butt, it doesn't mean the fire's mad at you. It means
Right.
it means you're being an idiot. You understand?
Exactly. A lot of people ignore the common sense of it all, you know?
Well, I wasn't going to say that quite that bluntly, but I could not agree more.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of common sense that gets avoided due to superstitions and spookism.
huge. And so I would say for me personally, there's no way I'm going to tell you how to pray to God. There's certainly no way that I'm going to tell you how to pray to your ancestors. That's between you and them. I can share with you things that I learned about ancestor reverence that work for me, and I got a lot of information about that. But none of it would I pose in the form of you got to do it this way, and if you don't do it that way, God help you.
It's over with. You know,
Yeah,
the Orisha's gonna get mad and this, that, the other, and
you're doomed as doomed can be. No, none of that. So,
you're
and
doomed as doomed
well,
can
listen,
be.
I understand that that's confusing, and
Well, that's why I asked, because I'm a lot of times when people get these things, of course you're supposed to respect them, because hell, if you spend $10,000 to go get initiated, I would be putting those things up into some elaborate down and wear too. But I mean, I think some of that stuff is just cultural, and about like having things look nice and just design wise and aesthetic wise. But if you don't have that, because I believe that the Orisha are within you, correct? You are the Orisha, right? They're all within your body. So really the best way to care for it is to care for yourself, right?
Yeah, right. Listen, that's the subject of my current book that I'm working on. I'll tell you more about that later. But there's a point I want to make leading up to that. $10,000, $15,000. I've heard $50,000 for initiation. Be clear. Initiation in Africa involves parents initiating their children. That's considered taboo in the diaspora. It's the norm in Africa. Mm-hmm. There's no way I'm going to charge my daughter $50,000 to initiate her. Are you kidding me? There's no way I'm going to charge her anything. I did initiation and I covered all the expenses. She had a wonderful experience. I'm glad she did it. She's blessed, and the community is blessed, based on the idea if her life gets better, my life gets better. So, they do initiations for non-family members. They charge a nominal fee, but when I went to Ode Remo, the charge for a tefa was $125. I went to Oshobo, the charge for an Orisha initiation there was $75. And after I had one of my students receive initiation to Osun and paid him the $75, there was a huge argument among the women that I overpaid. So none of this is about earning money or scamming or becoming rich, or it's got to cost this to be correct. None of that. It's a part of the culture. It's a part of moving forward. I would say 90% of the traditional families that I've met, and I've met a lot of people in Africa, 90% of them initiate their children into the family in Orisha on the third day. Baby's 3 days old, they initiate them into the Orisha of the family. That gives them access to the power of spirit in the family shrine in the room that I talked about with the rocks on the floor. And it makes everybody integrated into the egg bay from an early age. It gives people access to altered states of consciousness. It improves the quality of life. It's the essence of what it is. It's the essence of the spiritual practice as I've come to understand it in traditional Yoruba culture. And beyond that, every June 23rd, every New Year's, the children of the community recite the entire corpus of Odu Ifa. They take that big book that you have, and the actual oracle is about 4 times that big, and they recite the whole thing from beginning to end by memory. And at the end of every sentence, if they get the sentence right, the grandparents say "Hein," which means you got that right. And if they don't do it, then they try it again and again. And if they miss it 3 times, they sit down and they replaced by someone else who continues reading it. But here's the key thing. Our oracle, as it's preserved, not only talks about what we believe, it talks about in great detail how we do things. Every initiation that we do is described in Odu Ifa. And I'm telling you, every New Year, every June 23rd, that opus of information is read publicly to anybody who wants to walk by and listen to it. in the marketplace open. There's nothing secret. The children know it. The children memorize. The children may or may not be initiated. The whole notion that some information is secret and only the initiates can know and they're privileged and you're a nobody and so you can't find out, that's a Western notion. Heavily influenced by Catholicism, the notion that only the priest can intervene between you and Jesus. Shango said never said he needed intervention. He needs the ori of the person he's talking to.
So, speaking of this, Shango and all the Orisha, were they actually people, or were they? Is that I wanted to always ask that question. Were they actual real human beings walking on the earth?
Good question. Odu Ifa represents frequencies, which are streams of consciousness. Streams of consciousness flow throughout creation, and they're all interconnected. So spirit, and so if you take the idea that the universe is conscious, consciousness in the universe occurred billions of years before human beings showed up. That's billions with a B. So there is a stream of consciousness that we have come to call Shango, but that existed long before there were planets, long before there were animals, long before there were people, long before the word Shango ever existed.
Could we also say the same thing for Awo Falokun or Monica Genesis? Or, are all of our streams of consciousness something that has existed for billions of years?
Yeah, well, no,
all of us being beings on this earth. Are we all really like these ancient beings that really have us?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so that's the content of my latest book. I call those streams of consciousness the source code. Mm-hmm. Everybody is born with a complete blueprint for all of creation coded into their DNA. And the fact that that's true explains why all the great stone temples around the earth use the same geometric patterns, the same mathematical formulas, the same resonance for invocation. We're all born with the source code. So we take that source code and we access it, and then we project it onto the earth. If you understand what I just said, that means human beings create God, not the other way around. And so the source code, if what I'm saying is true in terms of we all bring it to earth, the key to accessing the source code is called initiation. Initiation is the process for accessing the ability to communicate with the primal frequencies of creation. And that ability to communicate with those frequencies is what gives us spiritual power. It's the basis of alchemy. It's the basis of magic. It's the basis of transformation. It's the basis of healing. And it does not involve an all-knowing poobah who tells you something you're too dumb to know. It's about each one of us acknowledging that we have that information inherent in our heart and soul, and that we have specific methodologies for accessing that information, sharing it with the community, and making use of it to try and create a better world. IFA says the purpose of life is to co-create the world with the Creator and make a better way to get through the day. Co-creation in Yoruba, the phrase for that is Ile Ife Orun Waye, meaning unconditional love of the invisible realm comes to earth. Our job as Ifa priest is to go to the invisible realm, figure out what unconditional love looks like, and then manifest it and project it onto the landscape. The fact that, and so the universal symbol of the source code is the flower of life. We find the symbol of the flower of life in ancient Egypt. We find it in ancient Ile Ife. We find it in Hinduism and Buddhism. We find it in the mandalas of First Nation cultures across the United States. The flower of life is a geometric pattern that projects the structure of consciousness itself onto our own DNA, and we can communicate with that geometric pattern. So this is the really miraculous part of life, that if people understood it, we could start fixing problems instead of arguing with each other over nothing. But frequency creates streams of consciousness, but those streams of consciousness are held in geometric patterns. So when you mark the geometric pattern, it's like you're creating your own cell phone with a direct connection to spirit, literally. So when the Awo sits down to do divination, the two sets of quadragrams that are part of each Odu, that's a two-dimensional symbolic representation of a three-dimensional energy pattern. The energy pattern is called a Merkaba. The Merkaba is the fundamental structure of all of creation. It's two counter-rotating three-sided pyramids that have 4 points of contact with what's called a celestial sphere or a torsion sphere. Those points of contact create portals between dimensions. Those portals then open and close, allowing electromagnetic impulse to enter them. And as the number of portals opens and closes and shifts in their position, it causes a change in frequency.
Mm-hmm.
That change in frequency gives us access to a different stream of consciousness, or a different library, we can call it, of ancient wisdom. And so when you mark an Odu on the tray, that's a two-dimensional symbolic representation of a three-dimensional energy pattern. The symbol creates the pattern generates the consciousness, and if you literally put your hand a couple of inches above the tray, you will create a link and start to be in communication with spiritual forces that have information outside of your personal history.
I have a question. Is the Akashic record and IFA the same thing?
Well, Akashic record is a Hindu word. Most of these ancient spiritual technologies have different words to describe them. The word for Akashic record in Yoruba is Eleranipin, but it's the same phenomenon.
The witness of fate. The witness of fate.
Well, right? No, it's the witness to creation. Eleranipin. When you say the word Arumila, Iba Arumila Eleranipin Ibikiji Olajumare Ajay Jugun Abiti Apiju Ikuda, which means the spirit of Arumila witnessed all of creation, the Akashic record. He was there as creation unfolds, meaning that the mechanism for creation imprints on the streams of frequency that are part of Odu Ifa, and he's able to access that and repeat it back and use it as the basis for problem solving. So
what? Here's a question. So if we were to compare Orunmila to, say, a Hebrew, right? Would that be ill? Would he be like similar to, because you have Elohim, you have Yahweh, you have what would the similarity? What would Olodumare? Would he be a Levitical priest? What would Olodumare? Orunmila. What exactly would he? Because I always find like there is some thread. If you actually go deeper into a lot of like these beliefs, you'll see that there is a connection. That they all kind of was all believing the same thing at one point, but then people begin to separate, divide, and conquer it all, and then you get confusion. So I was always wondering, like in Judaism, what would Orunmila be? Would he be would he be Jesus? Would he be who would Orunmila be?
Yeah, okay, listen, that's a little bit complicated, but let's start with this idea. The source code for everybody is the same. As that source code becomes as that source code emerges into culture, it's easily manipulated and distorted for reasons that are not universal, let's say. But let's look. Here's the key factor. The Yoruba language is 30% Coptic. which means the pre-Arabic language of Egypt. It's 30% Ge'ez, which is the parent tongue of Hebrew, and it's 30% 3 or 4 West African dialects. So what that means is what we're calling Yoruba is really a combination of influences where, because we have the same source code, everything that exists in the metaphysics of let me put it this way. The source code in IFA is symbolized by the flower of life. The source code in Judaism is symbolized by the tree of life. There's a big difference. And the tree of life and the flower of life are reflecting the exact same symbolic language. No difference, exactly the same. They're not similar, they're identical. All right, the tree of life has 10 stations, and you think, well, Odu has 16, so that can't be right. But the tree of life, the last 3 stations are 1, so it's the same numerology. It's 8 stations that represent the descent of Ashe and 8 stations that represent the ascent of Ashe. So there's what's called Seraphith, 16 Seraphith, but the 16 Seraphith has the exact same metaphysical meaning as the first 16 Meji Odu, which has the exact same metaphysical meaning as the first 16 principles of the Emerald Tablets, or the Tablets of Thoth, which are the foundation of alchemy. So it's all the same thing. It's only history, greed, competition, and the need to divide and conquer that has caused confusion. The Bible calls that the Tower of Babel moment. But, if you look at the history of IFA has never tried to conquer any people, has never tried to denigrate any people. They've remained true to some deeper, what I would call ethical and moral issues that get quickly and easily overlooked and ignored, where IFA in the diaspora loses its original intent is when it becomes influenced by Catholicism and engages in the debate that my God is better than your God. My God wants me to kill you because you're unworthy. My God says you can be a slave because it's evil to have dark skin. All that nonsense comes out of a human need to blame others. That's why IFA is deeply, deeply, deeply rooted in the notion that we take responsibility for all of our problems. So if you have a problem and you say it's because Shango hates me, that is avoidance. That is not spiritual growth. That is avoiding taking responsibility for you being an idiot and sitting in the fire, causing you to get burned. It's a variation of the really silly idea that the devil made me do it. So the Aramaic religions were weaponized. Yes, that's true. I agree with it. And we're suffering the consequence. That doesn't work. That's not the way life was meant to be. That's not how we're designed as human beings. That's not the purpose of life on earth. So we'll either get that or we won't. But there's a lot of people who are working overtime to make sure that you believe that they have the ear of God, and that if you want to have salvation, you can only do things their way. And if you don't do things their way, you will be punished. All of that conversation to me, is just foolishness. It's like childish gibberish. I don't give it much mind. So, it used to bother me because when I first went to Africa, I thought, oh my God, there's wisdom here that we can't even imagine. I want to share this with people. People were not real excited about hearing any of that. To this day, they're not real excited about hearing any of that.
So much pushback, and then it's all. But I'm gonna show you a video. I'm gonna show you a little snippet of a video, and I think it's interesting because
upset me.
Like, I want to hear what your thoughts on this are. Now you know that the Catholic Church, because like I said, you think that practices are different, right? People try to make it seem like, oh, this is witchcraft and that's witchcraft and it's evil and this, that, the okay. But I'm like, you guys don't understand that we're all doing this, practicing similar practices. Now, this is not something that I've seen practiced in IFA, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Check this out.
Why is a human skull being placed inside this golden statue? This is not a royal coronation in the usual sense. In Catania, Sicily, the skull relic of Saint Agatha was presented to the faithful before her reliquary bust was crowned. Saint Agatha, a 3rd century martyr, has been venerated in Catania for centuries. The ceremony formed part of celebrations marking 900 years since her relics returned to the city in 1126. Cardinal Pietro Parolin led the solemn rite. For believers, the crown is a sign of honor for a saint remembered for.
All right, so not only do they have that, but they also have the skull, I found out, of Mary Magdalene.
They do, yes.
That you can actually go and they have her whole like statue and then her skull with some glass over it. I'm like, what is going on here? So when what is happening, right? So
Yes.
so y'all are practicing that witchcraft, what y'all doing this and doing that. But what you got the skull with the thing and then put it into the what is that?
Yeah, I have an explanation of that.
Okay, let's go.
When the Catholic Church came into existence, they claimed the right to make kings. They claimed to be the only authority to make kings, and that any king that was not coronated did not go through a coronation involving the Pope was an invalid ruler, right? But kings before Christianity, believe me, kings were before Christianity, so they obviously couldn't be crowned in the name of Jesus because there was no name Jesus. The kings prior to Christianity were called dragon kings, and the kings prior to Christianity were initiated into the collective wisdom of their predecessors. So the way the system of dragon kings work, if you were the king, you were succeeded by someone else in the community who was not one of your children, and that person became your descendant by virtue of when the king died, they cremated the heart, and they cremated the brain of the previous king. Portions of that cremation, I mean little portions, were ingested, and then portions were put in the crown, and that was a way of transferring the memory of all the kings that went before the current king. That is the basis of the Holy Mass. Here, eat the bread and the wine, the blood and the body of Christ. That was a attempt to mimic, diminish, and alter the ancient rite of dragon kings, and to make it solely for one lineage of kings that had the backing of the Catholic Church. So, it's the exact same thing, but that's an example of how an ancient tradition, which was extremely effective, was denigrated and made irrelevant. And the truth is that process is still used for making kings in Yoruba land today, although many of them have objected to it. There's about 21 king titles in Yoruba land, and I would say 3 or 4 of them still do the old rites. One of the people that has been through the old rite is Obo Afashade, who lives here in the United States and comes to our rituals. We're blessed to have her. But she's a clear and unyielding medium for the connection for the process for bringing unconditional love to earth. So anybody that's involved in scamming, sexual predatory behavior, lying, deception, they're not functioning as an Oba in the traditional sense of the word, and they should not be given any play.
So I wanted to show this skull of Mary Magdalene for anybody that did not know this, which I'm just now finding that this is even a real thing. But I find it interesting that these are practices within the Catholic Church. It's like to keep a person's skull and put it on display. That these are altars, This is a pretty much of an altar, or what is it? Shrine, right?
Yeah, that's not a big surprise to me. The children, God, I hate to say this, the children of Mary Magdalena became the kings of Austria.
What?
And yes, and those are my distant cousins. So I'm aware of all this history because it's a part of my culture. But the point is, the mysteries associated with that statue really relate to alchemy and the mysteries related to Isis. You know, the Gothic cathedrals of Europe, there's 80 Gothic cathedrals. Every one of them has a shrine to Isis in the basement. Isis, the African goddess of transformation. And that shrine area in the Gothic cathedral was used to study alchemy. Alchemy is the ability to transfer one element to another element. And the cathedrals themselves were giant resonant chambers that facilitated that transformation. So if you look at it, it makes no sense. Have you ever seen a Gothic cathedral?
No, I haven't. What know what you mean, like those really old churches?
Well, the Notre Dame, for example, yeah, the really old churches. They're huge. They're intricate. They're 50 feet high. They've got stones that are huge. I mean, they're just these incredibly complex and complicated structures that were built throughout Europe at a time when the next largest building was a 2-story mud hut. So it's like, what the heck is going on here? We got two separate cultures. We got two separate perceptions of reality. We got two separate system of knowing going on in the world. And, there's been everything we've been taught about all that is, I believe, a lie. The book, the Da Vinci Code, kind of scratched the surface on that. It actually created another deception that annoys me. But the point is, here's that history in a nutshell. There was a huge global flood around 12,000 years ago. The highest mountains in Europe are the Carpathian Mountains. They survived. The ancient technology, which goes back hundreds of thousands of years, was left intact there. The Scythian culture of those mountains then became nomadic and traveled from what is now Transylvania all the way through China and back through Russia, and distributed the information that allowed people to build the Gothic cathedrals. And that information, and we still have access to that information through Odu IFA, is the secret of free energy, the secret of anti-gravitational transportation, the secret of resonance healing, and the secret of using resonance to grow crops. I mean, it's really extremely advanced information. And in 1870, Rockefeller and his friends decided that if they perpetuated that culture, they couldn't exploit the masses, and they tore down all those ancient structures that were based on.
Pyramids, right? But
it's a lot more than the pyramids. That's a long story. It's called Tartarian culture. There was huge buildings that were torn down, and from 1800 to 1870, trains operated on free energy. That has been ignored.
And I know churches, they said churches like the bells, and they were healing places. It wasn't just like church. You would go to and be healed. It was like
Yes, they had sanctified the landscape and made the earth a place of healing, resonance, and coming together in unconditional love. And certain people objected to that, and they tore it down. I believe, at the risk of sounding strange, those people had help from a particular group of ETs who are not wanted here on Earth, and that were living in captivity to their greed, and that the current chaos is desperate attempt by those entities to maintain control of this planet. And I think the original keepers of the wisdom are returning, and they're going to help us free ourselves from all the foolishness. But we have to pay attention to it. We have to be ready for it. We need to be able to be healthy in our response to their efforts to help us. I don't know. Have you ever watched Skinwalker Ranch?
Skinwalker Ranch? No, I haven't seen that. Is that a TV show?
It's a reality TV show where they've discovered an interdimensional portal where ET is coming through that portal to, it's used as a way to travel long distances in space. So they found evidence of consciousness there, and rather than taking a moment and saying, hello, who are you? You're welcome, they just started shooting at it.
What?
Yeah, that's about the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Are you going to shoot at it, and then it could have a more powerful weapon than you got and could destroy you in a heartbeat? But you're going to take a chance of shooting at something that could be way more.
They clearly have more powerful weapons, and they're using them. So my point is there are portals in different places. I know where there's a portal similar about an hour and a half from where I'm living. And
Louisiana has a bunch of portals. I think it is a portal.
Yes.
The whole landscape has. But I wanted to here's the thing I wanted to get an idea, because we did talk about this is about like shrines and like altars and things like this. Now, people were saying that the pyramids were cemetery, were actual tombs, but they also were energy, right? So
stop. They were never tombs. They're not tombs.
Didn't they find people bodies in the pyramids?
Not a one.
Oh, so they didn't. Okay.
No, not a one. So what were the pyramids? If you look, Christopher Dunn did a wonderful job of explaining what the pyramids were. Here's the point. Plasma clouds are conscious. There's a great book called The New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple, where he shows that what the ancients called spirit was really plasma clouds, and that plasma clouds are not only conscious, but they can be programmed to function in particular ways. We call the programming of plasma clouds collective prayer. So the purpose of the pyramids was to generate huge plasma clouds that had the task of terraforming the earth and making it a delightful place to live. And we've destroyed that technology. The other place where that technology was really, really clear is Göbekli Tepe, which is a record of every extinct animal that ever lived on the planet. We can regenerate the earth in its original primal form with the tools that are left at that site, but people are not allowing for the possibility that the stone structures at Göbekli Tepe is not a shrine, it's not a temple, it's not an altar, it's a machine. And there are ways to work the machine to make it work to do the thing that it's going to do. The way the machine works is that there's like a temple, there's like an altar at the base of a stone pillar, and the stone pillar has a carving in it that indicates the animal that was invoked by the resonance of that stone. And if you put a stem cell in the plate at the base of that stone, you can invoke the seed that will generate the extinct animal. And so we've got all this technology surrounding us, and people are scared to death we're going to figure it out, because believe me, the few who control the many know what I'm saying. I grew up with these idiots. That's how I know all this. They all know it, and they're trying to control it. And I'm saying, no, we need to share that with the world, because if your life gets better, my life gets better.
Exactly. Wow. Well, so that's why I was actually getting into like how, because like I said, the biggest difference is that what they do with religion is that they try to demonize one belief, and then they have to say they pretty much are practicing the same thing. So I just wanted to show you guys some famous skulls kept by the Catholic Church. The Saint Mary Magdalene, Saint Thomas Aquinas, Saint Agatha, Saint Valentine, Saint Catherine of Siena. And what happens is that they take them out, they periodically process them for public veneration, and they honor them and have festivals and bring out their skulls and honor these saints.
So, what's the name of the secret society from which 80% of the administrative politicians in America come from? It's called Skull and Bones. What do you think they have in their meeting place? George Bush's grandfather stole the head of Geronimo, and every year the Apache Nation asks the family to give it back, and every year George Bush says, no, finders keepers. So what the hell is that all about? That's all about secret rituals related to the truth of what we're saying here.
Yeah.
I believe that the Bush family has a moral obligation to return the head of Geronimo to his descendants. You know, they need to stop with that colonialization of indigenous culture. It's a time to grow up and move forward and to be truly just in the administration of.
And I'm wondering what they do with the Egyptian bodies that they took out of the thing and put them on display and had their whole mummies and everything like that. I mean, I know that they were eating it at one point. People said they was eating it. It was called some mumia that they was eating, mummy bones or whatever. And they was getting high off of them. Because I guess the formaldehyde that they used to process the bones probably was getting everybody high.
Oh, no. You're close, but no cigars. The practices of eating mummies continues as a way of ingesting the DNA to get secret knowledge. In other words, if you're able to access your DNA, your perception of history is different than the nonsense they teach us in college and call it history books. The initiation has given me a view of history that's radically different than what I learned in school. For many, many, many years, I was reluctant to talk about it, but the more I study it, the more I believe it to be true. I've written a couple of books about it, which have not done well because people just don't want to believe it. But there is an alternative history, and it's real. And Monica, let's call it a day here soon. I've lined up some people to come and talk with you and continue this conversation. You're doing great work here. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support you're giving the community, and we'll talk again.
All right, so guys, please check out his page, his group on YouTube, and it is on Facebook. It's called the Egbe Iwapale Ifa Orisha Community. Every I think Saturday he has a live Zoom class where he talks about different subjects. Let's
call that Sunday.
Sunday. He does those classes, and then he also has IFA divination classes that he teaches, and I think he just now starting to teach the Marindilagoon for a small fee. But please check out his community. Also, is your website up now?
Let's get the facts straight. If you go to www.Awo Falokun Study Center, there's a free course on both Marindilagoon and IFA divination. Free. That's FREE, no charge. There's also a course for $675, which will teach you how to do every single initiation that we do. I have 25 hours of lecture, and I have a 500-page reference book that comes with that course that includes all the prayers used for initiating people. I'm proud of our family for putting that resource together. It guarantees that the old ways will be preserved, that we don't have to depend on the Catholic influence style of IFA that's the predominant manifestation of our faith in the diaspora. And I'm thanking you again for your tremendous effort in helping us to support that effort.
You said it's Awo Falokun Study Center?
Yes, you have to put the www. For some reason, you have to include.
Okay, they got to fix the DNS on it. Okay, so that's what it is.
Yeah, www.
You have to put www. Otherwise, it won't show up, guys.
Right. Yeah. Put www in front of that. Yes. And so make sure there's lots of options. There's lots of course material. All the Sunday classes will eventually be posted at that site. I'm doing my best to I'm doing my best to make information available to folks easily. And the biggest frustration for me is when I was coming up, there were not many serious teachers. And I've been trying to, but my main focus as an Awo is a teacher, you know. I've created families. I get lots of help with that. That's not my main expertise. My let's say my focus has been as a teacher, and I enjoy that, and I'm especially enjoy it when I have serious students who then want to come together and actually practice the faith in a way that's extremely effective. And for that, I'm grateful. Oh, look at you. That's the opening page. Yes.
Yep. So this is the website. If you guys check it out, it's called, you got to go to www.Awo Falokun Study Center. This must have been when you guys came to Dallas, or this is a different one? These pictures, okay.
Mexico, look at that. I haven't seen that in a while. Yes, that's Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Albuquerque. Yeah. Nice.
Oh, okay. And this is his his Elay and his some of his godchildren. But thanks, Baba. Like I said, he has some products on here. Check out his stuff. Do you have your books on here as well?
They are on the www website. I'm going to start posting them on my Egg Bay page, I think. I haven't done a very good job of promoting my books, but I've got 20 books for sale on Amazon.com. Start with Awo Falokun because that's book one, and then go from there.
Looks like who copied from the Hindus? The IFA? I think it'd probably be the other way around.
Oh, listen, 3 weeks ago, the Genome Project identified African DNA as the oldest DNA on Earth, sourcing it to cultures that they can't identify. So that if I'm right, that we all come to Earth with the source code in our DNA, the oldest, the earliest, the most complete version of the source code comes from Africa, and we need to honor that as a planet.
Ashe. Well, thank you so much, Baba, and I appreciate Abaru Aboye Aboshishem.
What would you say? Stay safe, know that you're loved and appreciated, and know that we'll talk again, all right?
All right. Peace, Baba.
Double.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better life. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. That's right. Only you can make the change. Shine your head at you. Shine so bright from darkness to light. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your